So this first study is research that shows the critical importance of good leadership and its impact on work-life balance and job satisfaction. So the main questions they sought to answer was, how does ethical leadership affect one's job satisfaction? And what is the role of work-family conflict, as they used in the purpose of this study, but it's work-life balance for those of us that identify with that term more. What role does that play in that relationship? So they did a study. It was a questionnaire for 234 participants. This was based in Portugal, and they looked at a healthcare facility there. So this was primarily targeted towards the healthcare field, but I think the research obviously has good implications for every type of organization. So the participants answered the questions that were related to their thoughts on their supervisor's ethical leadership. And that's obviously a range of things based on generally just being a good person, I suppose, and not being unethical. But there's also a level of that's being kind and considerate, kind of outside of just what you would maybe identify as ethical. They rated their own job satisfaction, and then they also rated how they viewed their work-family conflict and what that balance looked like for them. So the results showed that ethical leadership and job satisfaction are definitely related. And what they were kind of looking at too, though, is the mediating role that work-family conflict ends up playing in that. So a lot of other studies have shown that there is a relationship between that ethical leadership part and job satisfaction, because supervisors have a really big role that they play in the atmosphere of an organization and how they impact you while you're actually on the job. But this mediating role of the work-family conflict comes into play because based on how things are going at work, that might be that you're pulling work home. It could cause more conflict in your family life if it's impeding on things that were important. Maybe you missed a family event for work, those kinds of things. And so they showed that when that comes into play, it makes a big difference on the ultimate job satisfaction that you're getting from that job. So I think really the takeaway is that how a manager leads an organization and how an organization functions as a whole and what they do to honor their staff's time and work-life balance makes a very big difference on job satisfaction overall. And so it's an important factor into that of not only having a good leader, but having someone who also knows the importance of your work-family balance.
Yeah, it's a nice, simple, clean study, right? Just a correlational study. They seem to be correlated, but then they're sort of mediated by this work-family conflict. So an ethical leader kind of supports a healthy balance between work and life, and that would lead to a higher job satisfaction, essentially.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to note is that in terms of conflict resolution too, that it takes away or prevents a little bit of conflict as well. If you're satisfied in your job, there's less conflict at your actual workplace. And then if you're satisfied with that and you have a good work-family balance, you're not going to have as much conflict at home for those things too. So I think that's a really, interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, actually, and what is arising for me just is taking this correlation, which I think that we've already correlated this prior to to reading the study, but it just makes me think, what does it look like now throughout the pandemic, and how this work-life balance, maybe a lot of organizations had that, but it's becoming like that line is a little bit more blurred with people working remotely and working from home. So it's just making me think of that and just what a leader could do to alleviate that in this current time that we're in.
Yeah, so like being quite, especially like during this where people are working from home, and there's the lines have been blurred a little bit between work and family. So someone being very supportive during this time and being supportive of someone taking care of their life responsibilities is probably pretty helpful. Just this reminded me of just something that just brought up in the last conversation we were having, Sarah, with our training group, which was like one person said that their husband would come home and vent about how horrible the work was or their boss was or something like that, and that was affecting their relationship a lot really stressful and that kind of stuff. So it's like, maybe that's one way. That's not one other way that this mitigates that kind of conflict, is like, it's not going to force someone to come home and complain about how terrible work was.
Yeah, absolutely. And when she was sharing that, I thought of just friends of mine that are constantly complaining about their work. And when we're in personal time, when we're together, and that's what majority of people are talking about, is their work life and the conflicts that they have in their work life. So it's clearly blurring over into their personal life, as well, just that being the topic of conversation. And
Sarah, do they find it annoying that you have absolutely no conflicts at work and everything's just really peachy?
Oh, of course. No, we have conflicts too. Yeah, no, it's, and I think this also highlights just the change in culture of our work-life balance over the years. Just talking to older generations like my parents, who are now retired, and like what it was like for them as compared to younger generations today, and like what the workforce is like today. I think that this is just highlighting a lot of those changes, where there's a little bit more respect and acknowledgement of that work-life balance today as compared.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
The needs of employees in general are just so much more of a focus. I think because maybe one, organizations realize the value of that, and number two, we're evolving as a society in some way, right? We're recognizing that we do have the right to have our needs fulfilled by our organizations, and organizations need to live up to that on some level.